All right, everybody. I am super excited to have Brad, aka B Sports, the show promoter slash show runner slash show master of the Shipshewana Card Show, as a guest on the channel today. Brad, just for people that don't know you or maybe don't know the show, can you give where can people find you and just some quick information because you actually have a show coming up very soon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And first, let me say it's very cool for me to be on your show, man. There's so much content out there in the world right now, and I just feel like there's a few sources you can go to where guys are not only giving opinion, but base it up with fact, or at least the research they've done. And I just appreciate with the work you do with the graphs and Jim Mint. I think it's all excellent. And you're one of you and Brett at Stacking Slabs, and obviously love Ryan Card Collector Two's content, more documentary style that he does. So just wanted to say it was really cool for me to be with you because you're one of the guys I watch a lot. And
Thanks.
the Sunday morning content is my favorite. A lot of times after church or when I'm doing some work to catch up for Monday, I'll have that on the second screen. So it's cool for me to be on here. But to answer your question, we are at probably our biggest platform is at B _sports. That started off as just our Instagram page, a way to show off our Colts PC, and has turned into a place to get information about the show. From time to time, we try not to go too crazy there. If you want just more show content than you could even handle, our Facebook page, Shipshewana Card Fest, presented by B Sports. It's our Facebook group. We had about 1,300 people in there that are just absolutely passionate and crazy about the show, and we talk a lot in there. So that's a tremendous place to find us. And we also have a Twitter at B_sports. Actually, I'm going to take that back. I think the Twitter is at Shipshewana Card. And so that's another place you can see. The Twitter's more just me blasting out the show flyer, not a ton of content there. Facebook is super heavy on content. And then the Instagram is a combination of show content and me showing you my favorite Jonathan Taylor cards.
So, and you have a show coming up on Labor Day, this coming Labor Day weekend, and I was actually surprised pre-show that when you said that this was the first show that you've actually ran. I just assumed that you probably started with like a smaller local show, but you just kind of dove right into let's just go for like a 150 to 200 table show right out the get.
Yeah, I wish it would have started that way, but it started out with fairly humble beginnings. I always tell people the show came to mind because right in the middle of COVID, right during the boom, I went to a show in Elkhart, Indiana, and it was in an abandoned shopping center. And it was in a store that used to be like a Dollar General or something like that. And I went in there and the place was absolutely packed, but it was a 95, 96-degree day. And there was absolutely no room, no air conditioning, no bathrooms, but people were just loving it. Like they were trading. This is when you could buy John Morant silver prisms a week before and flip them for $150 more the next week. A lot of fun was being had, but I just thought to myself at that show, like, I think I could do it better than this. And this is no hit against the Elkhart show. They don't do it anymore, but I love that show. So it's not a hit at that, but I thought I have some ideas on how I think we could make a pretty cool show. So I took off from there, and my in-laws actually live in Shipshewana, Indiana. That's how the show came to be there. I actually live in a town called Fort Wayne, Indiana, about 55 minutes south of Shipshewana. But I went to my father-in-law, who I'm blessed. He owns a hotel with a conference room in it. And I said, just let me one time do this show for free and see, kind of a proof of concept, right? Like, let me see if I can put on a show the way I think I can do it. And so he said, yeah, go for it. And I said, it's middle of July. I'm thinking I would need about 6 weeks to promote this show. But that's Labor Day. I don't know if I want to do that. And he, to his credit, he's the one that says, no, Labor Day is exactly the day that you do it. He owns a large business across the street in Shipshewana. It's actually the Midwest's largest flea market. And I always say it's the Disneyland of flea markets. It's super clean, concession stands everywhere. It's a big attraction in Northern Indiana. And he said, everyone thinks that people have things to do on Labor Day. He goes, but actually people are looking for things to do on Labor Day because a lot of things that they normally do are closed. and they have the day off work. At least the most Americans have it off work. Not all of us, all of them, unfortunately. But so we gave it a try, right? I thought my first order of business should be to make the coolest flyer that I possibly could. So there's a guy online, Niner card collector, Bernie Hammer. A lot of people that watch this will probably know Bernie. He's got a pretty popular account, and him and his wife do some fantastic graphic design. So we came up with a really cool flyer. And believe it or not, our first show, we did buy one, get one free tables. So if you bought a table for $40, you got one free. And my thinking behind that was people aren't going to come out to a 22 table show, right? But they'd come to a 44 table show possibly. Or if you sold 40 tables, maybe they'd come to an 80 table show. So that first show, we had about 66 tables. And man, we just turned the marketing machine on. That's what I do kind of for a living in my real life, is marketing for an insurance company. So I had a pretty good idea of doing that. I also, some of the best ideas are stolen. I looked at the style and frequency that Card Collector 2 was kind of doing things in. We've been friends for a long time, and I borrowed some things that I saw him doing. And we did that first show. And like I said, we had about 66 tables, and we had about 300 or 400 people come through. And I tell you, the biggest challenge I thought I would have was getting people to come to Shipshewana, Indiana. You've been there.
Yes, multiple times.
You've got to be coming there for a reason. You don't just drive through Shipshewana, Indiana on your way to something else. But that has honestly been our biggest blessing. Even though there's nothing within an hour of that town, there's a lot of major cities within 4 hours of that town. And so as the show grew, and we could talk about like why it grew, how it grew, what were the chain of events that made it into a 185 table show with a 40 to 50 person waiting list now. But as it grew, we started getting people from Detroit, Chicagoland, Southern Wisconsin. Ohio has become a huge state for us. We get people all the way from Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland. So what I thought would be our biggest detriment turned into our biggest asset, that we're right in the middle of a lot of large cities, even though we're not really close to anything. So kind of rambled on there, but that was kind of the genesis of the show, where it started and kind of what the idea was behind it when we first gave it a run. It was just a guy and his son thinking they could maybe do a little better than the guy down the street.
Yeah, I know. You talked about Ohio people coming over. Like, we have a very vibrant local card show scene. I probably have access to anywhere from 6 to 8 shows a month that I could probably get to within a 2-hour drive or less, and a lot of those an hour drive or less. Like Cleveland, the Cleveland Canton area has just a ton of like 50 to 80 table shows, like just constantly. And a lot of it is the same dealers, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a large contingent of people that definitely migrate towards your show, whether it be people trying to get tables to set up or just people coming for the day to kind of hang out. Now you kind of hinted at it. So what I'm trying to think well, actually, I know what put you on my radar for a show. It was when Ryan, Card Collector 2, did a video. I think it was I don't know if it was his first time there, but one of the times that he went there and he did like the vlog on it or whatever. And I'm like, oh, like I'd actually been to Shipshewana before at the flea market like years ago. So I was aware of the general location. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that there was a card show there. And that kind of like threw it on my radar. And, he kind of said that, it was really good, a busy show or whatever. And that's kind of what threw it on my radar. And then I think my first one was maybe 3 or 4 shows ago. Was it wasn't the Memorial Day. I don't remember what it was. About 3 or 4 shows ago. I think I've gone to 2 or at least 2 or 3 of the ship shows. Now I missed the last one, so I think I went to the 2 previous to that one. But that's kind of what put it on my radar. So I'm kind of curious, how did you get from 40 to 60 table show to like that, close to, what do you guys max out at, like 180, 188 or something?
Yeah, 188 it's kind of funny that number, because 188 is.
I see your IG posts all the time.
Okay. Yeah, I talk about it a lot because I think it's important. I always try to think, what do collectors want to know before they come to a show? They want to know how many tables. They want to know what kind of inventory is there. They want to kind of see pictures of the venue. So I always try to incorporate that. And so, yeah, probably beat people over the head with 188 or 185. But 188 is like literally just completely maxing out that space. I've even given thought maybe to backing it down to 180 just so we get more aisle room. It gets a little cramped sometimes, but that's something we play with. But how we got bigger, it was sort of like perfect storm. We ran 2 or 3 shows. I wanted to be a monthly show at first just because I love it. But I found that wasn't the best thing for us because we did it Labor Day, we did it October, we did it November in 2020, and I just noticed it was hard to keep the momentum. Someone, a dealer, once told me monthly shows are great, but if you really want events, you need to do it quarterly, semi-annually, because it's easy to miss a monthly show. Like if your wife really wants you to do something, or you need to mow the yard, or whatever the circumstance is, it's
Mhm.
really easy to go, I'll catch it next month. But a quarterly show, you hate to miss because it's going to be a whole nother 3 or 4 months before you can go do it. So we did those first 2 or 3 shows and figured out, we need to be a quarterly show. And it just so happened the last show we did in that hotel, which was about an 8,000 square foot area, Ryan came to it. And as we were figuring out how to be good at what we do and really starting to get a local reputation, I always say we started the fire and Ryan poured some gasoline on it. He dropped that video in our last show that we did in the smaller venue. And we took 2 or 3 months off because COVID kind of spiked again. So we had to shut back down. When we came back in February of 2021, we went from a 8,000 square foot space to a 30,000 square foot space. Now we can't use all 30,000 square foot, and I won't bore you guys with why that is, but we have a much bigger venue. That video dropped. We started getting a reputation. People were hungry for a show because Michigan was super closed down, and Michigan is a tremendous state for collectors. They
The,
come
the
in droves.
Midwest in general has this, just like Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. There's definitely, and you kind of hit on it earlier, though there's not a great airport necessarily. Like you're not going to fly into your show.
Yeah.
You don't need that because the collector base within a 6 hour rate, if you just drew like a 4 to 6 hour radius around your show, there's just so many passionate card people in that circle
100%.
that you don't even need to worry about people flying in for your show.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And so it was just sort of that perfect storm of we got good at what we were doing. I got better and better at the marketing. Ryan drops a video. So our circle of influence goes from um, an hour away from the show to 4 and 5 hours away from the show. People were willing to drive. That's what Ryan's video did for us. And I got to give a ton of credit. I call them my day one vendors. I just absolutely hit the lottery. I hand selected a lot of the first dealers that came. And then, good people know good people. They invited a lot of their friends for show 2 and 3. By the time we were ready to like explode into this 185, 188 table show, we had the dealers there. Because, as a collector, if you go to a big show and it feels more like a rummage sale than
Mhm.
a high level card show, then we would immediately die. So the biggest blessing we ever had that was when not only Ryan promoted it, we got better at it, but when people came, we had the inventory there. We had the dollar boxes to, I always say, maybe I'm overblowing it. You could tell me, I think we have nationals level dealers there. I'm not saying every single dealer there's a Nats level dealer, but we have Nats level dealers in the house to take care of just about anybody and find anything you're looking for.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you guys definitely have, and like you said, it's not every table, but I think actually I saw people that were, set up at your show that were set up at this year's national and the Midwest Monster that have really, really nice stuff, like
Yeah.
very nice high end stuff. But you guys have a really nice mix of, and I think it's the market that a lot of people like to play in. You have, like you said, a lot of good value box stuff, but you have a lot of dealers that I think focus on the cards that most people want to deal with, and that's kind of like that $100 to $500 price point, where it doesn't get the flash on a YouTube video, like a lot of stuff does. You're not sealed flawless or Herbert PSA 10 $15,000 cards, but in the reality, that's not where most people are. Most people are buying $100 cards, $200 cards, and you guys have a
Yeah.
nice selection of that stuff. In addition to, there is a nice mix of like, oh, that's a $20,000 Giannis, or that's a $20,000 LeBron, along with, oh, there's some really cool dollar boxes over here.
Well, and it's funny. I'll drop comments on your videos where you're onto something, right? You're like, "Hey, I think the market has changed," and because we're a quarterly show, I see that. Like, I see it go from a dollar box show to a $100 card show to a high-end show, so
Back to the
um,
mid end, and then yeah.
yeah, it's kind of funny as you see it, I'm kind of seeing it. So sometimes I'll drop comments below on your videos just saying, "Hey, we're seeing that at our shows that people are trending that way."
So, and this is something we talked about at the Midwest Monster. When did you decide to execute on the trade night? What was your first show? Actually, that might have been the first show that I went to. Was the first one that you guys decided to roll
Mhm.
out the trade night? Like, what was that something that you were just like seeing like shops do, like Ryan, and then like just based off vibes from the national? Like, what put that idea in your head to be
Yeah.
like, let's try a trade night?
So, I mean, like the biggest compliment I have ever felt towards the show is that they naturally started happening. Like, in no way am I saying it was like the Nats or a Dallas show, but the hotels in town the night before, I just started seeing on Instagram where people like JoJo and Icy Ice Cards were saying, "Hey, we'll be at the Blue Gate Hotel, we'll be at the Farmstead. Come over if you want to trade." And I would actually go over there just because I thought it was so cool that like this little show we started actually had like its own pop-up trade nights happening at hotels. Um, and I just kind of thought to myself, we should just have it at the venue. Like we're blessed that we have access to that venue. We don't have to sit in hotel lobbies or do that. I can just open up the venue the night before with permission from the landlord and get us in there. And like I told you, I was a little bit hesitant. To me, my job is to give the collector an amazing experience, but make sure that the dealers are in the best possible position to make money. I mean, they got hotels, gas, inventory. I need to make sure I do everything I can to make sure they make money. Now, you've talked about it all the time. They got to price themselves right as well. But I was super concerned that people would come to the trade night the night before, get their deals done, and then head out. And we would lose 10, 15, 20% of the crowd that I should have had there for the paying dealers. So it was kind of a leap of faith. I just thought it was the right thing to do, just the kind of a gut feeling. And to your point, it's the best thing we've ever done because what that trade night does is it fuels an even bigger show the next day. Twofold. What you were saying earlier, you come in the night before now, it's worth your drive to come in. So we're drawing
Mhm.
from farther away. Some people are selling all their inventory that night. I had a kid, I shouldn't say kid, but 18, 19-year-old guy. He said, "Dude, I sold $7,000 worth of cards last night and I came back and I dumped it all in the show the next day." So that to me is the two things the trade night does and why I think it was the best thing we ever did. It makes it kind of a 2-day event. And on top of that, it fuels the show the next day because dealers have more inventory. Consumers who spent the night and come back the next day have more money in their pocket. It's honestly the best thing we ever did. I don't think unless you had like a huge social media platform that you could pull off a first time ever trade night. Like the Midwest Monster was great, and I heard the trade night was amazing. They could do
Mhm.
it. The guy that's trying to start a card show with his son, I think that's something that you
You got to
evolve
build
into.
to it.
But I think it's a necessary step to go to that, like maybe super local, regional level is to add rather than a second day. I think the trade night's the play.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on it. Part of the thing that really swung me was, I saw, Ryan talk about the show on his video that he dropped, and then I was kind of on the fence about, well, it's a 4-hour drive, turnpike fees, $150 for a hotel or whatever, dinner, and I'm gonna get a full day at a nice show, which is cool. And then I think you announced, we're gonna do the official trade night the night before, and then to your point, at that in my mind, then it like clicked. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm getting basically like another show out of it, or a second show, or a
Mhm.
different show, well, however you want to consider a trade night, you know, I could leave after work. I get up there just in time for the trade night because it's about a 4-hour drive. Do the trade night, go back to the hotel. Because to your point from earlier, it's Shipshewana. There's not a lot to do after the sun goes
No.
down. So if you are driving up the night before, you're kind of locked in your hotel room with not a whole lot to do. So the advantage of that is, I can go to the trade night. I'm there till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and then, back to the hotel room, sleep, and get up and hit the show in the morning. Now, were the dealers on board with that, or were they hesitant as well? Were they like, what, you're doing a trade night? Or were they like, did you have to get some buy-in there? Did they have to see it before they were like, okay, you were right. We were,
It's kind of a generational thing, I think. And I'm in my 40s, so I'm not beating up on anyone it's kind of like the 40 and over dealer really had an issue with it. Like they really were like, Brad, I kind of feel like you're giving away tables for free that I'm paying for the next day. They came to the first trade night. They didn't get it. They thought I was letting people set up for free because they were like, Brad, they're spreading their cards out across the table. Like they should keep their cards in their backpack or their mag case or Zion case. They shouldn't just put them out on the tables. It looks like they're selling, and it looks like. And I said, if they don't do that, this turns into a high school dance, right? Where everyone's afraid to talk to anyone. What the laying of the cards out is, it's not them trying. I mean, it is quasi them trying to set up a table to sell stuff,
It's to
but it's
draw
real.
interest to your to whatever you got laid out, whether it's for trade or sale.
Yeah, it's that way of inviting someone over, and they didn't get that part of it because these dealers might go to Nats, but they don't maybe go to the trade nights, and they
Mhm.
don't know that culture. But I would tell you, I mean, I bet you there's still 10 to 20% of my dealers that are like, I'm not sure that the trade night. I still have a little hard feelings towards that. I think 80, 90% of the guys though are like, I get it now. The crowds are getting bigger at the show because they're coming in the night before. People are spending more money than they used to. I think it's been an absolute grand slam home run. And I'm very, very conscious of my dealers, those over 40s and under 40s, because they're my family. I mean, they're the ones that I have constant conversations with on DM between shows. I'm trying to, jockey for better space. They're trying to get more tables. So those are the guys that I listen to a lot of feedback from. But that was one that I just had to step out and say, guys, I think we're going to be okay if we do this. And after the first one, I did have to pull back. There were guys bringing in showcases for trade night,
Mhm.
and there's now a no showcase rule. Some of your listeners may go, though, that's dumb. They're just protecting their cards. That's security. To me, that's when you start crossing the line from a
Yeah,
trade show to a setup.
I feel like most people would agree with you on that one because even when you go to like the National Trade Night or like the Midwest Monster Trade Night or I was at Atlanta at the Atlanta show and like the pop up trade night in their place. There's not usually showcases. You're not laying
Yeah.
out 60 cards. Usually you're gonna we always joke like you pull out the stuff, you pull out the real eye candy that's gonna maybe the unique stuff, the thing that's gonna catch
Mhm.
someone's eye to bring them to you, and then you flip your case around and say here's everything else that I have. You lay out
Yeah.
your 6 or 12 eye catchers to pull people down to you. If you're a there's two versions of the trade night. There's the me and Flipping Stevens, some other content creators joke at the National. There's the old man trade night where you're wiped out from the show and you just want to sit down, so you just lay your stuff out. And then there's the young kids running around the show, running around the trade night with their Zion cases, going from table to table. There's like two ways to kind of attack a trade night. But I agree. Yeah, I don't. You shouldn't have a showcase at a
Yeah.
trade night. It's just not. I
And
don't know.
there's been some awkward conversations, when guys try to bring in 3 tubs of wax or car. Hey, that's, I always say, if it fits in a backpack, it probably fits at a trade night. If
Yeah, I think
if
that's probably a pretty good rule of
if it
thumb.
can't fit in the backpack, you're probably stretching it a little.
Yeah. Uh, so like, what's are you guys comfortable with like where the show's at now? Is there a next step, a next evolution, a next like, or is it just kind of like, I don't want to say status quo because you kind of never want to be status quo. You kind of always want to be doing like little things around the edges. But do you feel like pretty like concrete on where the show sits right now?
Yeah, I mean, I want to keep pressing the limits on not necessarily frequency, but how we're marketing. I want to get more dynamic. I market in my real career. The show allows me to try some things that I can't try on a
Mhm.
whim in my real job, and it lets me bring that back and try it. So I definitely want to keep pushing the envelope. I just pay a lot of attention to what guys are doing, and seems the more relatable the comment, the more relatable. I don't even think you have to come off as cool, and Lord knows I'm not. But I think the more relatable you can be, the more FOMO you can put out there. Like, man, you should have seen this at the show. You got to be there. But probably more what you're speaking of is: do we expand? Do we add more pieces to it? Do we add signers? When I say we, me and a handful of dealers, we constantly talk about that. 180, we have about 185, 188 tables plus 30 or 40 people on the waiting list. I really get tired of telling people I can't get them in. I want to get them in. So I have a huge desire to expand to maybe 225. but you've been to our building, the only option would be to go upstairs. And man, that's a tough sell to a dealer. Hey, I'm going to put you upstairs. I promise
Yeah.
it'll be all right. Or move the building. I like our building so much. I
No, I
don't
like
really
your
want to
building too.
move
Your
them
building's so
either.
interesting. It's a barn, but it's not really a barn. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
barn in name only. It's not a barn by any means.
So I think about that constantly. I think for 2022, we just stay with what we're doing. You know what? We'll just keep playing it back the way we are. Maybe adding a second day does spread out the crowd a little bit and give me a little more elbow room to really look. We'll talk about that. I think to answer your question though, for 2022, expect the same show, just trying to do it better and better. Like this time, we have a food truck. We probably need a second food truck, quite honestly. But this time we're adding a iced coffee bar
Oh,
out
nice.
right outside the door. So we're going to keep tinkering with stuff like that. I love messing with that and kind of trying to add stuff. I'm very interested in adding services to the show. I feel like we do a great job of inventory. We just got ISA. They're going to do ISA grading. They're going to do on-site raw card review. I think that's a really cool play because that is a professional set of eyes, and they're not going to encapsulate the card. You can get a real professional opinion. And say you want to send that on with ISA because you like them. Say you don't. Say you just want a professional opinion before you send it to um, PSA or SGC or someone like that. So I want to keep adding services. I'd love to have JSA out to authenticate. Man, I tell you what, we could do a whole show on signers and what I've learned through agents on the
Mm.
costs and do you bring it in? Do you not? Signers are tough. Like I admire
I
a
don't know
show
that you
like
guys need signers. I
yeah,
mean, that's not me. Like, I'm not like a signer is never going to draw me to the show. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I feel like that's almost like a different,
yeah,
I feel like you're almost marketing to a different, I'm sure there's some overlap. I'm sure there's probably a ton of overlap, but I feel like a lot of people, you either care about the signer or you don't care about signers at all.
yeah.
So that's I just don't know that you guys need it. But like I said, I don't know, you probably know more than me, but when it comes to running a show, but I just don't know that I feel like you guys need a signer. You guys already are packed and knock it out of the park. So I don't know what a signer would add other
Yeah.
than maybe a different mix of people in the room. But do those people, are they coming for the just the signer and then they're out the door anyway? So like, what's the value add for the vendors at that point, other than maybe getting a couple extra eyeballs on
Yeah.
cases?
Well, this will be a terrible humble brag, but I always come back to that. I'm like, where would I even put the signer? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't.
Yeah.
If you don't have space to put the signer, you probably don't need the signer. And we came very close one time to bringing a professional wrestler, and I asked some of my dealers that I love what they thought, and they said, "I've seen it done before, and the wrestling crowd is not a football basketball buying crowd. It's a totally separate set of people, and they're great people and they're fanatic and they love their wrestlers, but they don't come, they're going to walk around and look for wrestling cards. And now that's a little more available than it was a year ago.
Hmm.
But to your point, it hasn't made sense yet. And if we ever did it, I don't want to sound snobby. I don't want to do like, you know, someone that pitched in the World Series in 1942. I want to do like something really cool, like
Someone
a
relevant.
current, yeah. And that
Or at
gets
least
super
regionally
expensive.
relevant. I mean, like you could pull, like Notre Dame's right there. I'm sure,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? There's plenty of sports people you could pull from that Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit,
yeah.
Indiana, Indianapolis area that would have some appeal to people in that region.
I think that's
Well,
the play too, is to grab them right before the draft, like with NIL, before they get the big money in their pocket, try to get
mhm.
them to come, so, but I didn't
Yeah,
mean to cut you off
yeah,
there.
with NIL now, that's like actually a pretty interesting take to have on that, especially that neck of the woods. They love their college football, whether
Yeah.
it's Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Northwestern. Like there's tons of programs you could pull from an NIL, and that would actually probably be an interesting angle to take on that if you were going to go down that path. We'll kind of start to wrap up a little bit here because I don't want to keep you too long. If you know, if someone was watching this and they wanted to, maybe they already run a small, 50 table local show, 100 table show, or maybe they're like, man, we don't have a show in wherever area that I'm in, and I think we probably could do one. Do you have like a couple, little nuggets of information to either get someone like to spark the fire in someone to get up off the couch and actually say like, let me take a crack at this and see what happens?
Yeah, like if I were starting a show and it was really on my heart to do that and I had a passion to do it, the first thing I would do, and the people that would want to start a show would know this, it's kind of an unwritten rule that you try to stay out of someone else's geographic area. So I would try to avoid, if you had a show in town for 15 years, I would try to probably avoid putting a show right on top of that show.
Mhm.
But what the first thing I would do is try to find an area that needs a show that's close to where you live. I would try to find venue is so huge. If the venue can provide the tables and chairs, the hidden expense in card shows is the tables and the chairs. Those 8-foot tables are not cheap. And if you have to provide those or rent those, you're going to be upside down before you start. But if you can find a venue, a VFW hall, a Elks Lawn, whatever the case may
Mhm.
be, that has a great location, decent amount of parking to start out with, they'll provide the tables and chairs. You've got yourself a making of something there. Second thing I would do is it's sometimes you got to give away something to start something, kind of got to lose money on your first show.
Yeah.
I would go either with the permission of the show promoter or find them online. We all have 6 or 8 dealers that when we go to a show, we look for that guy and we're like, I love that guy's stuff. I love how he treats me. I love his prices. He's got the kind of inventory I love. Seek those people out and give them the best deal ever on setting up at your show to take a chance on you. Even if you got to say, hey, you're free for this show. I just want you to come out and help me build this thing. You'll be shocked how honored they are by that. And some dealers you wouldn't expect will take a chance on you. And it's so Ryan, card collector 2, told me once, he goes, the tough thing about shows is it only takes one bad show for someone to say they're never coming back again. And it takes a while to build that back. So I would make sure that when I did my first show, I had that good venue with the tables included, and I had 6 or 8 vendors there that no matter what other vendor showed up, because in your first couple of shows, it's sort of you're taking a chance on people.
Yeah.
But at least if you had that core group of dealers, everyone's leaving happy because they'll find something there that day. So my advice would be find a great venue, affordable venue with the tables and chairs, and then hand select a core group of dealers to build your show around.
And then if someone already had, say, someone's already running a local show, it's well established, maybe it's that 50 to 80 table range, and and in the back of their mind, they're like, I want to take this to the next step. Would it be the same advice? Like, obviously find a bigger venue, but is there any, other than like social media marketing or, any of
Mhm.
that sort of thing on like, how do you kind of like how you guys did, how do you make that jump from I'm the local monthly show to I'm a regional player or something along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, just keep pushing the envelope on your marketing. Make sure that you're getting in all the niches. I think guys like you and I, and maybe you understand it better, we think that Instagram is the whole card world. Twitter has a huge card world out there.
Mhm.
Facebook, all these different Facebook groups have super loyal followings. Make sure you're getting in to all the different venues. Just because the hobby, you consume your hobby content one way, just realize there's a lot of other content out there and find ways to reach those people. The other thing I would say is contact like a San Diego Cards, a Kentucky Basketball Cards, whoever the big influencer is in your area, and say, hey, man, come out. This is going to sound a little crazy for some people's budget. Hey, come out. I'll pick up your hotels. I'll let you set up for free. But when you come, I just ask that you shoot a video about your experience here. That's a great way to get out the word about your show, is to use some of these influencers, take care of them, get them out to your show, and let them show the world that you've got something special there. Because it's all about just getting the word out. That's how I would get to that next level. I don't think a signer takes you to the next level. I don't think just advertise. The biggest mistake I see is people who say, I have a 150 table show, and you get there and it's 60 tables. What they're
That
saying is, I
that
have
is one of those
150
things that if I
tables.
go to one of those shows, I'll be like, okay, we're done here.
That's death to a show. Never say unless you've sold them, don't say you have them. So always say how many show tables you've sold, not how many tables are available. That's
Yeah.
super misleading and really ticks off guys like you and me.
There's a I have I there's a show, I will not name it, There's a show that I'm thinking about that will be like, oh, 60, 70 sold out tables or whatever, and you go and it's like a 30 table show, and I'm like, you got me again, and it's like an hour drive, and I'm like, ah. But it never fails though. It'll be like the day of the show, and I'll be like, well, I got nothing going on today. I got shows today. I guess I could drive down there. And then every time I leave pissed off every once in a while I get a deal done on something, but it's just like you walk in the door and you look around and you're like, this is not a 60 to 70 table show or whatever, whatever it is advertised. That is definitely one way to piss people off, to not
Yeah.
come back
That's
to
what
the
not
show
to
for
do.
sure. Yes. Yeah. Is there any other, is there any other like a big, like, oh yeah, you never want to do this?
Yeah, I mean, the misrepresenting the tables, not good. I'm also not a big proponent. Sometimes people in their flyers will use stock photos of other shows. I don't think that's cool. Like
That's
they'll use,
random.
yeah, that I've seen that a few times, and that gives people the wrong impression. You want what you're marketing to match what they're going to see when they get there. You
Yeah, it
don't
makes sense.
want to mislead people. People put their time into this. They'll drive from hours away. You got to deliver what they're expecting to be there. And then the other thing I would say is, um, I'd be really careful about starting my show and all your dealers are guys that are trying to move stuff out of blaster boxes. I've done that a few times where I went to a 40 table show, but I don't mind a 40 table show. I'll go to a good 40 table show anytime. But
Oh yeah, I mean,
if it's
I
just
love, I
guys,
love, I
yeah,
love 30 to 50 table shows as long as it's good.
I would just make sure you have a couple core dealers there. That's like, yeah, anyone that comes to this show is going to find something if they go see Rob and Steve.
Yeah,
So just make sure you have those core guys there, and you're not just setting up a show that is a little weak on inventory.
cool. All right, well, we'll leave it with that. So when give the official. So what is it? Labor Day? Give me the days, times, the trade nights. Run us down the full marketing pitch here to close us out.
Yeah, so
Because we
super
got a show. What, a
excited.
week and where this is going to go up on probably Thursday, so we'll be like 10 days away, I think.
Yeah, so September 4th, the day before Labor Day, the eve before Labor Day, we'll have a trade night 6 to 10. Like you said, I think at the first one we ever did, there were 50 people. The last one we did, we almost hit 400 people trading and making deals and selling. I would highly suggest coming in for the trade night. I would never steer you wrong. It's fun. It's laid back. And then the next day on September 5th, I believe it is Labor Day, the show will go from 8:30 to 3. I always say it goes till 3. We don't shut it down until it's very obvious that we should shut it down, right? So we'll go to a lot of times 3:30, 4:30, and keep it running as long as the sales seem to be going, and it's not just one guy going through a dime box somewhere. um, but so that's the next one. We would love to have them out. It's a collector based show. I always say, I'm not saying we're the best show in the country, but I think we got a claim to maybe be the most unique show in the country. So it's worth your drive to come out and check it out at least once. And if you do come over and say hi and say you've seen this, I love to meet people. I love to talk to people. And then we'll take some time off. We'll come back on November 5th. Well,
Okay.
November 4th trade night, November 5th show. And then we'll pack it up for the winter because Northern Indiana weather is a little rough.
Yeah.
We'll
As someone who lives in Ohio, it could be fine or it could be not fine,
Yeah.
depending on what the weather gods want to
Yeah.
throw at us.
And then we'll be back in March of next year. So no, I couldn't tell you how happy I am to be here. Thank you for having me on, and I'll talk about this show anytime. It's our passion, and we're just collectors. If you go to our Instagram page, you'll see we're just collectors that run a show, and we just appreciate and are honored by everyone that comes out and sees us.
Awesome. Well, thanks for giving me the time. Hopefully, some people got some good information out of this about the show, and for maybe sparked someone to finally start their own local show. I hear from a lot of people in my comments when I talk about like how many local shows and stuff that we have here, just in the general region of the Midwest. A lot of people will be like, "Oh man, I wish I had even just a 40 table show." So maybe someone out there will say, "All right, if no one else is going to do it, I guess I just got to do it myself."
Yeah,
So,
no, I hope they do. I mean, hey, what's the worst that can happen?
yeah,
You break even, or you slightly don't break even, but you got to say you tried it, and it's a
yeah.
very low risk proposition.
And then maybe one day you're a 180 table show in the middle of Amish country.
Right? Yeah, that's the one hazard. Watch where you're driving when you come in. You could run over something you don't want to run over.
That is for sure. And depending on what hotels you stay at, you can get really good continental breakfast in the morning.
Yep, absolutely. Farmstead Inn. That's the family hotel, so I'll plug that as well.
So, all right, Brad, you have a good night, and I will see you in about a week, and hopefully, the some of the viewers can make it out as well. So, thanks again for stopping by. It was a good talk.
Thank you.